notice by your study guide, we don't have chapter 3 written down. There's just class 3, but we're still in chapter 1. Okay, so let's do a little bit of review from the last Bible study. We've been studying the various times and the different ways that God has dealt with man in times past. We've looked at the different dispensations, and I know that, as we've shared with you, that Hebrews is basically dealing with the forefathers of the Hebrew or the Jewish people, which begins with Abraham. Okay, but we've gone back and we've looked at the different dispensations. But as we get into the book, we're primarily going to be dealing with the dispensation of promise, okay, which is from the call of Abraham, who is the father of the Hebrew people. He's the first Hebrew, okay, until the law of Moses. And then after that, we have the dispensation of the law, which is from the giving of the law, okay, in the wilderness, unto Christ's death on the cross. We know that when Jesus died, the veil in the temple was ripped in two. Okay, Jesus said it is finished. And so that takes us into the dispensation that we are in now, which is the dispensation of grace. We're still in this dispensation. It's been going on for about 2,000 years. Okay, we don't know how much longer it will last. Okay, and that will be from, we do not know the years, it's from Christ's death on the cross until the second coming of the Lord, not the rapture, but the second coming, the second advent. Remember, those are two different things. We learned that in 1 Thessalonians. So we want to remember, we've talked about it already, we want to remember the purpose for Paul, the Apostle Paul, writing this book. Okay, he was also a Hebrew. And as we introduced when we began this book, he was very knowledgeable of the Jewish religion, of the law, and the prophets. Okay, he knew what the Old Testament scriptures taught. Okay, and he knew how God had dealt with the Hebrew people under the law and under the prophets. Okay, he had a lot of knowledge about this. And he also knew, because he got saved, he knew what it was to be a Hebrew, a Jewish person, and become a Christian. Okay, a lot of what these people that he's writing to, what they were facing, he had faced in his own life. Okay, he knew what it was like to suffer persecution, okay, because of it. And he knew that if a Jew would convert to Christianity, okay, it wasn't something that was accepted. It was very unpopular. Even families would disown family members. Okay, we don't want you to come around here anymore. You want to be a Christian? You're not part of this family anymore. Okay, that happened. Okay, it's very real thing that people faced. Okay, so people faced persecution for it. The family disowned them, even to the point that there were some people that were put to death. And they tried to put Paul to death several times. And God raised him from the dead at least once. Okay, so he understood the persecution that they were facing. Okay, and he, as we know about him, at one time, before he was a Christian, he was the one doing the persecuting. Okay, at the very least, he was the ringleader of the people that martyred or killed Stephen. Okay, you can read about that in the book of Acts chapter 7. Okay, and he was blinded to Christ being the Messiah, as most Jews are. Okay, until, okay, Jesus stopped him on the road to Damascus in Acts chapter 9. Okay, God not only would have his physical eyes opened after he was blinded from seeing the Lord, but God opened his spiritual eyes and helped him to see that he was fighting against the Messiah. Jesus was indeed the promised Savior. Okay? And so the majority of Jews still are blinded to Christ being their Messiah. And we're not saying that none get saved, because as we've shared with you many, many times, the first Christians, those thousands that got saved there in the book of Acts, they were Jewish people. It wasn't until after that that God appeared in a vision, gave Peter a vision, going to Cornelius and his family. The Apostle Paul was directed to the Gentile people because the Jews were rejecting. But the first Christians, okay, were Jewish people, and the apostles were all Jewish people. Let's look at Romans 11:25. I have it down there about 2/3 of the way down on the first page. For I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own conceits, that the blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. Okay? He was telling these Gentile believers in Rome, don't get the big head against the Jews, basically. Doesn't mean that you're better than them. God has blinded them because they rejected. God knew they would be that way. Okay, the vast majority of them, not all of them, but the vast majority of them. Okay, so he's telling them not to, and we're not to boast against the Jewish people. There are people, there's a movement among the conservative political realm right now that they're really against the Jewish people. That's not the way that a Christian should be. Okay, you can go read Romans chapter 12 and verse 3. God told Abraham, I'll bless those that bless you, and I'll curse those that curse you. That's never changed. That's not been taken away. Okay, well, they rejected him, and well, yes, they did, and God knew they would be that way. But have any of us sinned? Have we ever rejected Christ in our life before we got saved? I did. I sure did. I fought against the Christian. I cursed him out. God had mercy on me. Okay, and God can have mercy on them, and he will. Okay, so don't speak against them. We're not to speak against them. Okay, so he's telling them not to do that, that God has a plan. God is reaching out to the Gentile people, but when that time of God reaching out to Gentile people is over with, God is going to once again turn to the Jewish people during the tribulation. And they're going to receive him. Okay, and he's going to come back. We're going to come with him to the earth, okay? So God knew the hardness of the hearts of most of the Jews, really all of mankind. People say like, oh, the Jews, they crucified the Lord. Well, they took him to the Romans. The Romans crucified him. Okay, but it wasn't only the Jews. The Jews were there. The Romans actually did it. The Greeks were present. Okay, Jesus was crucified. They had put on top of the cross, okay, in Hebrew, Latin, and Greek, King of the Jews. Because all of those people were witnesses. Okay? The Romans actually literally crucified him. Okay, so God knew the hardness of their hearts and all of mankind and how they would reject the Messiah and crucify him. And in doing so, they sacrificed the innocent Son of God for the sin of all of mankind. Okay, he didn't just die for the sin of the Jewish people. He died for the sin of all men. All people have sinned. Okay, Jew, Gentile, okay, everyone. Okay, so God used the way that people are to bring his plan to pass, and the way that the devil is. Man, the devil, I got an opportunity to kill him. Why did God allow that to happen? Because in doing so, he paid for our sin. Isn't that a wonderful thing? Okay. So they sacrificed the innocent Son of God, and he died for the sin of all of mankind. They rejected him for the most part, but a remnant would be saved. And there would be others, okay, the Gentiles, that would accept Christ. Now, not all, we know even today. Okay, Jesus told us, many are called, but few are chosen. Okay, this is a straight and narrow way, because there few there be that find it, brother and sister. Most people are going the broad way. Okay, Jesus told us that. Okay, and we knew that it would be this way. God has always known, brother and sister, what would take place. That's why it could be prophesied about, because God knew the way that it would come to pass. Okay, look at John 1:11 down there, about halfway down. He came unto his own, that's the Jewish people. Jesus was a Jew, and his own received him not. But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name. Okay, so most do not receive him, but to those that do, he'll give you power to be his child. Okay, Romans 9:25. Okay, and he saith also in Hosea, I will call them my people which were not my people, and her beloved which was not beloved. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, you are not my people, there shall they be called the children of the living God. Isaiah also crieth concerning Israel, the number of the children of Israel be as the sand of the sea. A remnant shall, though the number of the children of Israel be as the sand of the sea, a remnant shall be saved. So God had it prophesied by Hosea, okay, that a people that were not called his people would become his people. That's us, Gentile people. And that he had it prophesied in Isaiah, brother, sister, that a remnant, though the Jews were a large number of people, a remnant, a small amount of them would be saved. Okay, not all, and they were not all saved. Okay. All right, so Paul is writing to those Jews who did receive Christ. Remember, he's writing to Jewish people that got saved, Hebrews that have become Christians. He's writing to these Jews who did receive Christ and those who have ears to hear. Jesus would say that. They that have ears to hear, let them hear. Not everyone wanted to listen to what Jesus was saying. Most did not. But there were people that did. Okay? Now we come to church, others come. Why doesn't everybody get saved? Because some people don't have ears to hear. They're hearing the same message, the same gospel, the same word of God, but they tune it out. They don't have faith in it. They don't let it bring forth fruit in their life. It's not God. Okay? It's not the message. It's the individual. Okay, that's why we need to have ears to hear. Okay, we need to listen to what God is trying to say to us. Okay, so those that did have ears to hear received Christ. And Paul is encouraging them, I'm about 2/3 of the way down on the first page, to continue in the faith. Okay, and he's warning of the danger of going back into Judaism. Okay, if something is finished and done away with, why would you leave what God is doing now and go back into what God said was finished? Okay, so there was a danger there of going back into Judaism because they would not be serving the Lord if they went back into the law. God was done with the law. It's not the way to approach God in this dispensation. We approach God. It had its purpose. It was fulfilled. Okay, it showed sin. It brings people to the knowledge of Jesus and what he would do. Okay, but all of that was accomplished. It was fulfilled. Okay, the law was good until Christ came. Now the law is finished. And no man comes to the Father but by Christ. Okay, now we have an example from the Gospel of Luke about the Mount of Transfiguration. And we'll read it here just a second. Okay? Jesus showed this to Peter and John. Okay? He showed it to them and James. Okay? At the Mount of Transfiguration, when Jesus was changed and he appeared with Moses and Elias or Elijah. Look at Luke chapter 9, verse 33, the bottom of your first page. And it came to pass, as they departed from him, Peter said unto Jesus, Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 tabernacles, one for thee, one for Moses, and one for Elias, not knowing what he said. Okay? So Jesus, they dozed off, and Jesus met there with Moses and Elijah, and God allowed them to wake up and see what was going on. Okay? And Peter's like, wow, this is amazing. Huh? Jesus is talking to Moses and Elijah. Let's make 3 places of worship here, one for each of them. Okay, well, look what God the Father did. Luke chapter 9, verse 34. While he thus spake, there came a cloud and overshadowed them, and they feared, and they entered into the cloud. And there came a voice out of the cloud saying, This is my beloved Son, hear ye him. He didn't say hear him and Moses. He didn't say hear him and Elijah. He said, This is my Son, hear ye him. Okay, so God the Father right there let them know that their focus and who they needed to be following and listening to was Jesus. Because not very far after this, Jesus would be crucified and the law would be finished. Okay? In the same way, Paul tells these Hebrew believers that they are not casting away the heritage of the Jews. Okay, but just like God the Father told James and Peter and John to hear Jesus, okay, Paul is telling these Hebrew believers, okay, it's time now to hear Christ. He is the fulfillment of the law. Okay, he's not against it. Jesus didn't break the law one time, contrary to what they accused him of. Okay, he didn't do that. He kept all of it. He didn't commit any sin. He didn't speak against it. But it's finished. Okay? It is finished. And so Jesus was to be their focus, their priority is to have faith in Jesus Christ, not the law of their fathers or their traditions. Okay? Let's go on now, second page. Okay, now we're going to pick it up in chapter 1, verse 2. We've already dealt with verse 1. That's all those dispensations we went over. Okay? Chapter 1, verse 2. Okay, so God spoken unto them, unto the fathers by the prophets. Verse 2. Hath in these last days spoken to us by his Son, whom he hath appointed heir of all things, by whom also he made the worlds. Okay? So God, who spoke before by the prophets, now in these last days or ages, we believe that mankind, human beings, have been around about 6,000 years. Okay, if you run down the genealogies in the Bible, we are not saying that the earth started 6,000 years ago. If you study Genesis and some other books in the Bible, let me just give you a small example. You know, when God created Adam and Eve, he told them to replenish the earth. Well, how would they replenish it if there was nothing there before? You can learn about Lucifer Before he fell, he was over the world. And there were nations and creatures that followed him. Okay, that's in Isaiah. Okay, and I believe Ezekiel. Is that right? Okay. Anyway, we don't have the scripture for you down here, but you can read about that. 2 places it tells us specifically that he was over something. But when we see him in the garden, he was no longer the anointed cherub that covered. He had already cast down. And he didn't have authority over the earth. That was given to Adam and Eve. God said, I'm going to give you dominion. Now, they gave it to the devil when they listened to it. But the point I'm trying to make is, we don't teach that the earth is 6,000 years old. It was already there when the Spirit moved upon it. Yes, it was without form and void, and it was covered by water, but it was there. Okay, God turned the lights back on and dissipated the water and made the land appear. But there was things before that. But us, human beings, the human race, is about 6,000 years old. Okay? So, we have the short 7-year tribulation after the dispensation of grace, again, which is about 2,000 years so far. And then the millennium and the eternal kingdom. So God has been dealing with man for about 6,000 years. Okay? These years, these ages, God, brother, sister, in these last days. Okay, that's 2,000 years ago that this was written. So if he believed that we were in the last days, how much closer are we now? Okay? So God has been dealing with man, and we're heading into this culmination of God's plan, the end of it. Okay? So God has spoken to us by his Son. And we immediately see a distinction. He said he spoke to them by prophets. Prophets were messengers. All right? It's like a preacher. Okay? God spoke to them through men, through prophets, through messengers. Okay? But now, at this time, God is speaking to us through his Son. Okay? He's not just a man. He is the Son of God. Okay? And not only did he say that he was the Son of God, but he calls him the heir of all things. Who's the heir? The Son is the heir. Okay? So he is God the Son. He is more than a messenger. Remember? More and better. Okay? He's the heir of all things. They belong to him. You know, that's one thing. If you get a letter in the mail from some lawyer that says, yeah, you're in this person's will. Okay? Or they're going to give you some money. Okay, this person's going to give you some money. Well, that's great. But if the person with the money comes and gives it to you, isn't that better? Thanks for letting me know about it. But when the person comes and gives it to you, that's a better thing. Well, Jesus isn't just telling us about it. He owns it, brother and sister. It's his. He's the heir of all things. It's not just somebody telling us about it. He has the authority to give. Okay? Jesus isn't just telling us about salvation and forgiveness and mercy and grace. Because he paid for it, he has the authority to give it. Does that make sense? Okay, it's great that there's a messenger. Okay, but Jesus is the one that the message is about. He's more and better. Okay? He's a culmination of God's plan. He's the end of it. The Omega. Okay, he even said, I'm the beginning and the end. Okay, so now God speaks to us by his Son. We see that distinction. Jesus is more than a messenger. He is the one that the message is about. Let's go to Luke chapter 20. I have it down there on your study guide, okay? And Jesus told us this parable even before he was crucified. He let us know. He's given us an example of what Paul is teaching in his teachings out of Luke. Okay? Luke 20 and verse 9, about a quarter way down on your second page. Then began he to speak to the people with this parable. Jesus is speaking here. A certain man planted a vineyard and let it forth to husbandmen, and went into a far country for a long time. So this man owned the land. He planted a vineyard, and he let some people take care of it. Some farmers, some workers. And at the season, he sent a servant to the husbandmen that they should give him the fruit of the vineyard. But the husbandman beat them and sent him away empty. Okay, so he sent a servant, and they beat up his servant. Just like the Jewish people killed a lot of the prophets. Okay, fought against them. Okay, sent them away empty. And again, verse 11, he sent another servant, and they beat him also, and entreated him shamefully, and sent him away empty. And again he sent a third, and they wounded him also, and cast him out. Okay, Luke 20 and 13. Then said the Lord of the vineyard, the man who owned the vineyard, what shall I do? I will send my beloved son. It may be they will reverence him when they see him. But when the husbandmen saw him, they reasoned among themselves, saying, this is the heir. Come, let us kill him, that the inheritance may be ours. Okay, remember when we taught you, I believe it was the Gospel of John. They were envious of Jesus. They were afraid of losing their authority over the people. There were some that knew he was of God and he was right, but they were more concerned about their position. So they began to plan to kill him, and they did. Okay? This is the heir, come let us kill him, verse 14, that the inheritance may be ours. So they cast him out of the vineyard and killed him. Therefore shall the Lord of what therefore shall the Lord of the vineyard do unto them? He shall come and destroy these husbandmen, and shall give the vineyard to others. And when they heard it, they said, God forbid. And he beheld them and said, what is it? What is this then that is written? The stone which the builders rejected, the same is become the head of the corner. Whosoever shall fall on that stone shall be broken. But on whomsoever it shall fall, it will grind him to powder. Okay, so Jesus was letting them know. Okay, back there in Luke, he was letting them know about him. He was going to be crucified. He was letting them know that they rejected their Messiah, and God would turn and others would receive him. Those that would fall on this stone and be broken, in other words, those that would humble themselves and be broken in spirit at the feet of Jesus, would receive. But on whom this stone would fall, okay, those who reject, they would be destroyed. Okay? Thank God, brother and sister, we accepted. Okay, let's finish up with Romans 8 and 15 through 17, okay? And then we'll pick it up on point B next Bible study. For ye have not received the spirit of bondage again to fear, but you have received the spirit of adoption, whereby we cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit itself bears witness with our spirit that we are the children of God. And if children, then heirs, heirs of God, and joint heirs with Christ, if so be we suffer with him, that we may be also glorified together. Okay, so God has made us heirs. They were to be the ones that were the inheritors, but they rejected the one who would be joint heir with them. And so God gave us the opportunity, brother and sister, to come on into the family. You know, we no longer just call him God. He's God. He's way out there in heaven, way out there. No, we call him Abba. Father. He's my father. Okay, I'm part of the family now. We've been brought in, brother and sister. Thank God for that. So we're out of time. We're going to stop right there. Okay, we'll cover the rest of that, God willing, next Bible study. And we're a couple of days late, but we want to sing happy birthday to Omar. Okay. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, God bless you. Happy birthday to you. Praise the Lord. We've got some cupcakes and stuff for you and your grandchildren, and if anybody wants to has anything for them, feel free to give it to them, whatever the case may be. Okay, God bless you is our prayer. Let's remember Thursday night worship service, 7 p.m. Let's go ahead and dismiss tonight. Okay, is that still on? You go ahead and turn it on. Okay, we're dismissing prayer.